Good afternoon. I'm Brody Bovero. I am the Syracuse City Manager. I'm just going to do some introductions here before we turn the time over to Joe Hamblin, who is our Deputy Chief, our Deputy Fire Chief, and for this press conference, he'll be our Public Information Officer. He'll read a statement from the city. Following him, our Public Works Director, Robert Whiteley, will give some detail on the source of the water contamination that we've discovered. Then followed by him will be Dave Spence, who is the Environmental Health Director, Environmental Health Division Director over at the Davis County Health Department. And also joining us is Mayor Palmer, Mayor of Syracuse City. I first want to thank the residents of Syracuse City for the way they have conducted themselves during this difficult time here in our city. They have been great, and we're grateful for their cooperation. I also want to thank the mayor and council for their support, and also the city staff and the Davis County Health Department for the work that they've done over the last 2 days nonstop. I'm going to turn the time over to Deputy Chief Hamblin for a statement prepared for the city. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On Tuesday, June 2nd, at approximately 7:45 a.m., Syracuse Public Works charged the secondary water system in the new Gailey Farms subdivision. This subdivision is located east of Syracuse IHC Clinic. On Wednesday, June 3rd, at approximately 12:30 p.m., Syracuse Public Works received the first call from a resident reporting discolored water. Syracuse Public Works contacted Weber Basin Conservancy District to inquire about water flows. Weber Basin reported increased water flows. Increased water flows in culinary water systems frequently stir up minerals and deposits that are not considered harmful. Initially, Syracuse Public Works suspected these minerals and deposits were the cause of the discolored water. Syracuse Public Works began flushing and testing the water system at 2 p.m. This continued until 7 p.m. Flushing the system involves opening hydrants to drain out the water of the system. At the same time, chlorine is added to the system to destroy contaminants. The chlorine flows through the system and is eventually flushed out with the water through the hydrant. Initial tests at 2 p.m. showed that the water was in good condition. On Thursday, June 4th, Syracuse Public Works received additional calls from residents regarding discolored water. Some of these calls were from the same residents who had called on the previous day. Syracuse Public Works immediately resumed flushing the system and conducted additional tests. As this was happening, a citizen contacted Davis County Health Department about the discolored water. Officials from the health department responded to collect samples in the area of 2300 West and 700 South. They notified Syracuse Public Works of their actions and indicated they were sending the samples to a lab to be tested. Syracuse Public Works collected additional samples from the area of 400 West and 700 South for laboratory testings. Syracuse Public Works notified Weber Basin and requested that they pull a sample for testing from their point of connection with the Syracuse system. The purpose was to determine if potential contamination was coming from Weber Basin water system or if it was potentially occurring in the Syracuse City water system. At that point, Syracuse Public Works decided to let the system flush out overnight while they awaited test results from all participating agencies. On Friday, June 5th, at approximately 8:50 a.m., the health department contacted Syracuse Public Works with the information that their test samples showed contamination of E. coli and coliform. At 9:30, Syracuse Public Works shut down the city's entire secondary water system and isolated the culinary system to an area between 1000 West and 3000 West for areas north of 1700 South. At 10 a.m., the health department, Syracuse Public Works, and the city manager met to discuss the situation. The health department advised that a public notice was not necessary at that time. They determined it would be best to collect additional samples for further testing. At approximately 11 a.m., while the meeting was still in progress, Weber Basin notified Syracuse Public Works that the sample that was sent in by the city also showed contamination of E. coli and coliform. Syracuse City decided to issue precautionary measures to its residents based on the test results. These precautionary measures were posted to the city's website and Facebook page at approximately 1 p.m. By 2 p.m., the problem had been identified. It was determined to be a cross-connection of the secondary and culinary water systems. This problem was created 7 years ago when the IHC clinic was being developed. IHC was not the developer of this project. The problem lay dormant because the line was stubbed, awaiting further development. Nielsen Homes correctly connected the lines when developing Gailey Farms and would have no way of knowing that the original developer in the area incorrectly connected the culinary and secondary lines running under 2000 West. City administration was notified of the problem, and another meeting was held at approximately 2 p.m. Based on the sample results and determination of the problem, the health department recommended a citywide water advisory notification to include boiling tap water prior to consumption. This meeting lasted until 5 p.m., at which time city officials met to develop a course of action. They worked to ensure all the information was correct and that advisories were properly crafted to give residents as much information as possible on how to handle this situation in their own homes. 2 notices were developed. One was for the local media outlets. The other was for city's Facebook page and website. And the information was posted to the city's Facebook page at approximately 8 p.m. Syracuse City contacted Davis County Sheriff's Office requesting that dispatch initiate a reverse 911 call to Syracuse residents. This was done at 9 p.m. Syracuse City also contacted the area volunteer emergency coordinators and requested they share the information with block captains so it could be disseminated throughout the neighborhoods. This volunteer group is a community-based group that serves residents of Syracuse in a time of emergency. Syracuse City would like residents to know that its employees have worked diligently to identify and correct this problem. Multiple avenues were used to get information out to residents once the extent of the problem was properly identified. On-site testing of the water has shown that the problem is improving. The suspected problem area has been isolated, and the city believes the issues will be fully corrected in the coming days. As additional information of value becomes available, it will be added to the city's website and Facebook page as well. Syracuse City thanks the residents for all they have done to help spread the word to their neighbors. Syracuse City would also like to thank Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, the Davis County Health Department, and the Davis County Sheriff's Office Communications Center for their partnership and assistance. I will now turn the time over to Public Works Director Robert Whiteley for further discussion about how the source of the problem was identified.
I would like first to show appreciation to the Public Works Department. The entire crew has mobilized rapidly and has worked fervently since the time that the first contamination source was discovered. I have displayed on the panel here an aerial snapshot of the area of location where Public Works Department has identified the cross-connection source. This is the area of 2000 West and 700 South. Shown here is the IHC clinic. The field to the east is now developed as Gailey Farm subdivision. This is another exhibit showing the water mains that are running along the roadway in 775 South near 2000 West. The culinary mains are shown as the more solid line, whereas the secondary main is identified as IRR for irrigation, shown as more of a small dashed line. In 2000 West, there are 2 culinary mains and 1 secondary main. Along 775 South, when that connection was made in 2008, the culinary main was connected properly to a culinary main in 2000 West. The secondary main, however, was connected improperly to a culinary main in 2000 West. This line that shows going north is the service lateral to the sprinkler system of IHC Clinic. At this point, the Public Works Department did testing in this area to check valving by turning on and off valves to check operations. The sprinkler lateral was checked and positive chlorine residual was found in that line, which is uncommon, which shouldn't be found in a secondary water line. This is what helped us determine that this was an actual cross connection. We have isolated this section of the system. The secondary water main, as mentioned, has already been depressurized, and there is no threat of secondary water entering the culinary water system. We are currently running additional testing, doing chlorine injection to clear out the contamination that's in the main lines and tracing the contamination out of the system. We are continuing to run instant chlorine residual tests as well as lab sample tests on a daily basis. We are seeing improvement happening. As of today, we have noticed samples improving. We have had 13 samples that were taken yesterday, that 11 of which have come back clean. We have noticed a big improvement in being able to contain the contamination and remove it from our system at a rapid pace. With that, I will turn the time over to Dave with the Health Department.
Good afternoon. Just a few comments from the Health Department. First of all, I'd like to thank Syracuse City for their response to this incident. Sometimes these are, we've seen a wide range on these types of issues, and they are very complex at times, but the city has been very impressive with their response, and we are working with them in tandem, the Health Department and the city. I'll explain a little bit of that later. At this point, the department is, we are monitoring for enteric diseases in the area of Syracuse. It's important to point out that we have not confirmed any cases or any uptake in any of those, but the department does watch that through the doctors, through the hospitals. The department does recommend that if you're showing symptoms, and the symptoms of enteric diseases, common signs are any vomiting or diarrhea or fever, we do recommend going to see your physician if you're showing any of those signs. And it is important to point out that we are, as has been talked about, we're working with the city. We have been having a lot of meetings discussing things like flushing the system, increasing chlorine levels, and we have been a big part of the sampling. The majority of these samples are being run through our division lab. And I think that as we talk about the bottled water or boiling water, the city has done a really good job of getting those recommendations from our department onto their social media sites. But we would like to stress not to ingest this water at this time, and wait until word on that, and then we can start talking about moving forward with, draining water heaters and ice and that kind of thing. But until we hear back on that, we'd just like to keep people informed not to ingest the water.
At this time, we'll open it up for questioning, and I can direct it towards the board here as well.
Maybe you're the one to answer this, but how long were these two lines connected, culinary and secondary water? Do you know how long?
7 years.
But you said they were capped. So the lines have been connected for 7 years. Has been contamination for 7 years? Is that what we're thinking now?
Robert would be the one to answer that.
Thank you.
Yes, the lines were connected for 7 years. This was, as I showed on the exhibit, a dead-end main. The only service that was on this line was feeding IHC. So there was only one single feed coming into this line. That prevents the ability for back pressure when there's one single direction going into it.
So the IHC center is the one who was getting contaminated then for the 7 years, or?
No,
Okay.
no. IHC was watering with culinary water.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then the subdivision connected up.
Once the subdivision connected on Gailey Farm to the east, it created a second connection through that subdivision and hooked on to 700 South's secondary water main, as a secondary water main should be connected. However, it was as that feed from the secondary water was coming through off of 700 South through Gailey Farm subdivision and out into the clean water main in 2000 West.
So at what point did that happen? Do we know when that subdivision connected those two?
The connection was made last year. However, the system was completely isolated and shut off for the year. We kept it shut off through the winter. There was no need for it to be turned on because there were vacant lots. There was no need for secondary water service to be utilized in that neighborhood. The secondary mains remained turned off through the charging of the secondary water system in April because, again, there was no need to service that area. It also allowed us the ability to troubleshoot if at times a new subdivision may have leaks in their system if it was improperly constructed. This allowed us to charge the rest of the city system and then open valves to determine if there were flaws in construction. We did not see any flaws in construction, but just simply opening the valves created that feed in through to the cross connection.
Yeah, in the area that you've isolated now, roughly how many homes, how many businesses are in that patch on the map you showed?
The area that is isolated is the Gailey Farm subdivision, as well as IHC's secondary water. Their culinary water is not isolated. That comes off of a different road, 700 South. So everyone is in water except for the entire city. It does not have secondary water at the moment. We expect secondary water to remain off through the weekend.
So the boil order is for the whole city, or is it for that area?
The boil order was issued for the entire city. Realizing that we could determine the approximate area of contamination, we felt it to be a good safeguard for the entire city.
We go over some of the things that we some of the things that were found in the water at the health department?
There were two detections in the first sample. It was E. coli and coliform. Our second sample it was the first sample the city took, was also a positive for E. coli and coliform.
No, that's fine. Is there, you know, the health department was talking about the different things to look out for the residents to look out for. These are the symptoms of ingesting some of these things, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm not. If,
You know,
any more questions?
If there are no further questions, then Syracuse City would like to thank the media for their involvement in the situation. The media played a valuable role in helping us get important information out to our residents in a timely manner. Thank you.